Welcome to Struggles of the Spirit. I'm your host, the Reverend Lee Udell, and I'm glad you're with us again today. I've been out of this particular picture for some time. I've been ill and not well, and Bonnie, who's here today, she's been running it for me, and she has done a great job. And she came up with these people who are new here in Vermont, for us anyway, and we're delighted about them because they fit in so nicely. Now is this Mr. Now's name, and he's brought here to us today the record of Morgan Horses. And Morgan Horse is a native of Vermont. We don't realize that. We think of it as belonging to some other part of the country, maybe to the Lone Ranger. But it's not that way at all. And Mr. Now will give us some information about the Morgan Horse. But we want you to phone in. This is a two-way street. You can pick up the telephone, call us, and say what you want to say about our great horses, or about their history, or what they've done, what more you want from them. It's a two-way connection, and you just let us know that you call a certain number, which we'll give you, which will indicate to us that you're on the line, and then we'll talk to you privately on the line, and then you'll tell us what you want us to say, and then we'll connect you to the television broadcast, and your voice will come out, and what you want to say will be heard, and then we'll respond to what your question is or your statement is. It's fun, and it's delightful to have that kind of a connection. You're not just a passive interviewer with me, but you are an active person who is ready to give input to us and to the whole program. So, Mr. Now, if you want to begin talking about Morgan Horses and why we're here in Vermont looking at them, this is our time.
Well, first of all, we'll start with Justin Morgan, the man, and we go back to the 1850s.
No, I can correct. May I?
Mary Jane will fill you in on some of the particulars on how he erupted.
All right, please do.
I call it serendipity that Vermont joined the Union in 1791. It was the same time that Justin Morgan walked from West Springfield, Massachusetts, with a young colt that he was given instead of the money that was owed him. And he located in Randolph Center. He was a singing master, part-time school teacher, and this is a very small horse. And why he kept him was because he needed transportation. He was very practical. He was a Vermonter. And then over the years, the horse went from owner to owner and began to do some very interesting things. Not only did he outpull some of the big workhorses,
Really?
but he was able on the weekends to participate in races on the Morgan Mile, which is located in Brookfield, which is the town north of Randolph Center. This little horse was a winner for all his small size.
What enabled him to be the winners like that?
Probably the way he was put together. His conformation was not strung out and long. He was compact, he was up-headed, and he was very smart. And it didn't matter if they put a harness on him or put a saddle on him. He seemed to be able to figure out what it was expected of him to do. The other way that people in Vermont that had a stallion earned money was to sell the breedings. And once this little horse began to demonstrate his versatility, people kept bringing their horses to him. And so he actually founded a breed because all of his offspring resembled him. It didn't matter if it was a workhorse or a pony or another breed of horse or somebody's backyard horse. All of the offspring retained his ability, his intelligence, and his shape. He might have been different colors, the babies, and they might have been different sizes, but they resembled him. And from this one horse evolved this entire breed, which we are still enjoying today. And we certainly have different ways that we became involved in the Morgan. My husband was born in Stamford, Connecticut, and that was when it was farmland. So he had a pony as a child, age 5.
Age 5, and from 5 until 10 years old, I rode without a saddle because my folks were very poor and could not afford to get me a saddle. So I learned how to sit a horse better than anybody else because for 5 years I rode without a saddle. So it has brought me in good stead all these years for the simple reason I have never been thrown from a horse, thank God.
Wow, that's great.
And have ridden horses since I was 5 years old. And I am still riding and still showing. And at 71, I'm still going and enjoying the Morgan horse. Which, by the way, everything that the Morgan horse has bred, as Mary says, comes back exactly like him. And that's a very rare quality today in the horse world because there's only very few that have that same throwback, that everything that they breed to comes back exactly like the Morgan horse. You cannot have a breed of a young Morgan without seeing exactly that it's a Morgan horse. So we enjoy that. We enjoy riding and we enjoy doing everything else. And Mary will tell you some of where she grew up.
Well, I was very blessed that my father was born in Waitsfield, Vermont, just up from the covered bridge. And when my grandmother was alive, we would go up and see her. And the summers got longer and longer in Vermont because we had so much fun. And that was when I was first exposed to ponies and then Morgans. Some of the ponies that I had the pleasure of riding, they were all part Morgan. And of course, being an avid reader and learning that the Morgan came from Vermont, it kind of set off some bells for me. And over the years, I rode some purebreds, which had been traded for hay and were on a farm and nobody was doing anything with them. And even though these horses really were hardly used, they were safe, they were fun, they would go swimming in the Mad River with us, they would climb hills with us, they would play hide and seek with us, and occasionally I had one who kept getting loose and spending evenings in the cemetery across the street. However, from that I was blessed to have my mother who loved horses, and she was instrumental in me getting my first horse, which was a Morgan Percheron Cross. And to this day, I still have in our barn, or we own, a horse that goes back to the sire of my first horse.
That's unusual.
It's very unusual, and it's always sort of like that window into my roots, which I feel so blessed to have spent summers in Waitsfield, wintertime vacations. When I lost my first horse, I knew I had to get a registered Morgan. And at the time I lived in New York, the family friends took us up to Red Hook, New York, where one of the top breeding farms and show barns was closing down. And as they dispersed, there was one gelding for sale, the one that was, of course, the highest priced and last to leave was the one I got. And I can remember how hard it was having to pay for the horse as well as his board and any medical and shoeing bills. It was kind of daunting. I was in my early 20s, but I was so blessed to have him because I was able to enter this Morgan world. I did showing. I did benefits. We led parades. We did whatever you might want to do with a horse, whether it was under saddle or in harness. And from that horse, I was able to rescue other horses, which has been a unfortunate sideline that I've gone into.
What does that mean, rescue horses?
Well, there are, especially in a time such as now, where the economy is in such dire straits, many times people that have a horse thinking that their kids are going to, A, take care of it, or that they'll have the money to enjoy it, do things with it, oftentimes it gets to be where they have to feed the family, not the horse. Many times the horses are neglected, leading them to be needing rescue. Other times people just give them away. I acquired one horse because when the house was sold, the young Morgan went with it. And these people had never even seen a horse before they bought the house. And I ended up acquiring that horse because they were just overwhelmed. And the poor little thing was underweight and had no training. And he was as nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof, as they say. But this young horse did evolve and did go get some training and found a nice owner, and the rest is history. But rescuing horses is something that I have done over the years. Somebody...
I'll interject there.
Yes, please.
Rescuing horses is one of Mary's passions, and it's like eating a potato chip. You cannot eat one without eating another one, and so Mary has acquired quite a few of these horses, and at the present time we have 15
Wow.
horses, and we have a 12-stall barn, so you can see that could be a problem also. But we've also acquired in the same period of time some very beautiful show horses, and one of them is MEM Balamos, which we'll show you a picture here of him. And he is world champion as of 3 weeks ago. He has become a world champion. And he is trained by Bonnie Sokoloff, who is also here in Vermont.
And Keeley.
And Keeley Sokoloff is the trainer of this horse. So they have done a magnificent job of training and bringing him up in just a year and a half to become a world champion. And we have other horses that they've also worked on. And another one has just become a reserve world champion. So this is our passion. My passion is riding in the shows. And since I have been riding since I was 5 years old and have trailered and horses all over the country, I'm really glad that I could show horses and show them in the show ring.
I'm going to hold up a picture from last year at the World Championships, and this is MEM Balamos. Balamos means to dance, or we dance, and this is Keeley, the trainer, riding him. He won the Reserve World Champion Hunter Pleasure, which is a division in the Morgan breed that has gotten to be increasingly popular. Many people are riding in Hunter Pleasure now. Some go into the eventing and over fences. This horse is just plain beautiful and very, very talented. And we're very pleased that we have him. And we've enjoyed from afar, from the stands, watching him perform. He's also a breeding stallion, which I guess takes us back to the heritage of Justin Morgan the original horse, and how alike he is to that original horse. That common theme is there.
The
And
breeding.
he passes it on. I have a picture of one of his children that we were blessed with this year. And I will show you.
Why is it difficult to be a successful breeder? I don't know anything about breeding horses. What is it that's necessary?
Well, horses as a species are difficult because you have, I think it's a 60% chance of successfully getting a mare in foal. I mean, that requires all kinds of veterinarian intervention these days because we use frozen semen, which is better in the case of perpetuating a bloodline. You can store it indefinitely. But to thaw it and have it function, that's another story. But this picture here is Balamos' son. And I show this one first because even though we call him Chip as Chip off the old block, we have named him our farm name, which is Meadow Song, but his handle is Shelburne. This is Meadow Song Shelburne. And he was the firstborn in our new barn on Spear Street.
Really? Yeah.
And we have been so welcomed by the community of Shelburne that it seemed a no-brainer to name him for the town. And this, wait a minute, I'll find you a better one. I have a picture of his half-sister. I think I will. I guess I won't. I'll show you this picture. This is his sister. Okay. And now the glare is off. Good. This one is born about 9 days later, and her name is Meadow Song Flaming Mamie. And she's Flaming Mamie because, as you can see, she has lots of spirit. That tail is up in the air, and she's just absolutely the prettiest little thing. We've been really thrilled by the Balamos babies. And we are proud to say that that filly is born out of a mare I rescued 3 years ago. That was the year that I rescued 5 Morgan horses. And my next statement is that I'm still married, which
One doesn't
is
follow
great.
necessarily.
Yeah, well, it's great credit to my husband's patience and his wallet being drained. He's been very kind. But the mare that gave birth to this filly had a very long show record. So it was pitiful to see her a bag of bones with a baby at her side. And the person that had her did not apparently pay her board, so they sold her. And I was given the call, thank goodness. We are ever grateful.
I think it's a shock sometimes to come home from a business trip and find another horse in the barn and saying, Mary, how did we acquire this horse? Well, she would just simply say to me, well, take a look at it. It's so thin that I just couldn't leave it where it is. We just had to take it home, rehabilitate it, and go from there with it, whether we find it at home or whether we don't. Some of them have stayed with us, and some of them have gone on to been with other people and brought them the joy that we have had. So I'm always thankful for Mary that she has taken on this.
This is a rescued horse right here. Just being ridden by a lovely young lady. Whoops, I got to get this right. This is a 7-year-old. He was a breeding from our other stallion. He was born in Wyoming, so his name is Grand Teton Pecos.
Oh, that's a nice name.
Isn't that nice? And what a sweet horse. And we rescued him 3 years ago. When we took him off the trailer and I went to pat him on the neck, his neck was so thin, I thought my hand was going to go through it.
No.
It was just devastating. As you can see, he is not lacking for food, and he's a very contented, happy boy, and we have finally found him a good home. So he will be leaving us probably in the next few days. But he's gone from tough life to he's going to have his own person. But I guess to talk about the breed briefly would be to say Vermont wouldn't be Vermont if it hadn't been for the Morgan horse. That's my personal opinion. They eat less than other breeds. We joke that one extra oat can cause them to be ill. There's no other breed that I've come across, and I'm 64, so I've seen a few, that can go up and down the hills in Tunbridge, Chelsea, and still come over on the western side of the state and race in harness, which is what they did 100 plus years ago. And the breed was also taken under the wing of the US government and created as their cavalry horse, which is how the farm in Weybridge began. It was donated, and then the government bred horses there, all Morgans, for the cavalry. Then in 1951, if my memory is correct, we were mechanized as a fighting force, and we no longer needed horses. So what to do with the Morgan horse but turn it over to the University of Vermont, which is what the farm is in Weybridge. And they have continued the tradition of breeding horses that are sound and healthy and beautiful. And I say beautiful, which wasn't important for a cavalry horse. Their soundness and health was. But how do you take a horse from transportation and cavalry and evolve it into one of the premier sport horses of our area? It's remarkable. And they began to then select prettier horses to breed to prettier horses. And that was the development of what we have today. It has evolved.
And you can show the picture, the big picture there.
Where is that?
Oh,
And show what a horse today,
okay. This is,
if the camera can get back far enough to do this.
well, you hold your side. Just tilt it forward slightly so the glare is off.
Is the right angle, Bill?
Yep. Yeah, there
There
you are.
you go. If you can see, my husband is riding Meadow Song Rhythm, who's better known by his barn name as Teddy Bear. And in the background are two mares and their babies, the two foals, Shelburne and Flaming Mamie. And they're playing. And the little boy is running next to his mother, who's a dark brown mare, who has the blood of my very first Morgan in her veins. And I can't see the other mare in that picture. She was the rescued mare. And I wish I had a picture of her because she's absolutely phenomenal. She's such a beauty. You can see why she was a show horse. I'm going to show you this also, which is a series of composite photos. And this is our at-home breeding stallion, who is now 25 years of age. And he, again, is the same blood as my first Morgan. This is actually a nephew of my first Morgan. And I went looking for this blood once we were married and had established a barn and had a safe haven for them, and never expected to find one of this stature. He was purchased from Greensboro, Vermont, from a gal that had bought him out of New York State as a young horse. And she decided she was too old and had to put more time into her 10-year-old child than she did her stallion, so we were blessed to acquire him. He's more traditional. If you saw him in person, you would say, oh, he looks like the statue down at Weybridge. And if you saw the new stallion who just won the class, you'd say, oh, well, he looks like the statue, but he's just a little taller. And that's kind of the difference, is the size these days. We get a little bit taller horse.
You have a picture of Balamos there, don't you, Mary?
I'm
I
sorry?
have, his name is Balamos, and I'm going to show you,
Here's a picture of the stallion. This
this is his at leisure moment. And I like the fact that he's over the word spirit, because he has plenty of spirit. He's got what I call presence. He loves people. I think that's another attribute of the Morgan breed.
And that's a more traditional of what the new Morgan horse looks like today.
Little tiny bit taller. And I don't think we'll get a great shot of this, but it's worth focusing in on. Our at-home stallion, whose name is Saddleback Oakley, this is his half-sister, who is named Saddleback Sophia. She's running across a field from our home in New York, and this exact picture was used on the cover of a book written as a novel about a girl who used a horse to recover her spirit after an illness. Mm-hmm. And we were really pleased that she had that honor to have such a nice thing happen with her picture.
I'm going to interject here also that since I am 71 going on 72 years old, when I was 68 years old, I was never formally introduced to riding formally. So I met Bonnie Sokolov, who is a trainer here in Vermont, just 5 miles down the road from our stable. And she says, well, why don't you come up and take some formal lessons in Western pleasure riding? And so I did. 2 days a week, I would come and Bonnie would beat the living daylights out of me to teach me how to ride Western pleasure, which is one of the most difficult things to learn how to ride, because you have your hand on a rein and it never moves. It's 5 inches from the pommel, which is on the saddle, and your hand never moves from it, and you have to learn to steer your horse with your legs and with the rest of your body. And so she took me from that and taught me it all over the next year, and I learned how to go into the show ring and win different things with her. And she is just a remarkable teacher, and so is her daughter Keely, who has taken this stallion, Balamos, all the way in a year and a half, all the way to the World Championships, and had the horse become a world champion. So they really, here in Shelburne and this area, are one of the best trainers that you could ever have.
This is a photo of Meadow Song Rhythm, Teddy Bear, with Bonnie when she won the Connecticut State Championship for the Western Pleasure Horse. And what makes this especially nice is that Teddy is homegrown. He's out of the mare that you saw the photo of running in the field. And one never knows that their dream is actually going to come to fruition. And had we not found a trainer like Bonnie who trains the horse to do what the horse does best, probably we wouldn't have such a good feeling and such joy in the success of this horse. But to have a homegrown win is essentially one of the highlights. Our stallion at home also has a daughter, and we are tiptoeing into a new realm of Morgan Horse World, which is called carriage. And it's driving, but it's more than just pleasure driving. It has to do with the carriage as done years ago. They do a variety of excuse me, they do a variety of exercises and ring work, as well as going out on what they call marathons through brooks and around obstacles. And in the ring, they have to go through the challenge of cones and trying to do it in a fast rate of time. And that's some of what we were showing over at the History Expo with our horses. And that's something we're learning about. The Morgan is known for its versatility, and it's known for its family relatedness.
So other breeds of horses have different qualities that
Yes.
they're not all the same. Is that correct?
Well, they tend to have a more, what I would call, narrow field of use. You've got thoroughbreds, which everybody watches the Kentucky Derby on TV, and those horses are known for their speed. When they aren't quite fast enough for the track, they make excellent jumpers and hunters. But it's not common to think of seeing a thoroughbred with all that long leg and long neck as a cow pony. They're just a little bit too big to make those turns. Your quarter horse is a little bit more compact and does have that history. But you don't see them doing some of the things in carriage that the Morgan can do. The Morgan is uniquely built to do just about any job you ask.
Wow.
And each one has a particular bent or liking for a certain discipline. And our one carriage mare, you can sit on her, but boy, you put that harness on her and she's smiling. Her ears go up and she's just happy to work. And we ended up, as I say, in Shelburne because we wanted to be closer to the trainer and in a warmer climate. This has certainly been wonderful. But not just wonderful as a 15-acre farm where we can have fun with our horses, but we have been so welcomed by this community. We were there barely 2 weeks, and a gal knocked on our door and brought us warm cookies. She said, "I've only been here 20 years, but I want to welcome you to Shelburne." And her name was Greta Craig, and she introduced us to a good physician. Another neighbor from across the street has been unique. He followed the building of the barn. He gave Jerry his telephone number in case he had a problem and couldn't get up to Shelburne. And as soon as we moved the horses in, he goes, "You have no fire extinguishers. You have to have fire extinguishers." And he was very kind. He went and bought us 3 fire extinguishers and made them our barn warming gift.
And put them up.
You
So
did.
Walter Grant walks on water for us.
Yes, he
He's
does.
a truly kind and welcoming human being. He's also helped with the horses too. He's
And
been a real addition to the barn.
And a gentleman in his 80s, and he certainly helps out with the horses and isn't afraid of them. And lots of times comes down and gets a horse and brings it into the large arena and works with the horse. And a half hour later or an hour later, he'll put it back into the field and go home. We've
And-
learned over the times that Shelburne has been so good to us. for instance, that a lot of times the chief of police has stopped in and just said hello and how are you. Other times somebody else from the community will stop in and say hello. And I was here helping with the building of it. And if we needed something, something was dropped off on my porch, or we needed some food, well, somebody would bring some food over. I've learned that through my age now, a little bit older than a lot of people, that Bonnie and her husband would go to a show, and there would be somebody there in their 40s or 50s, and they would simply say to me, well, I can't ride anymore because I'm too old. And I would hear the expression, Jerry, where are you? And at that time, they would bring me over to them, and they'd say, well, what do you do, Jerry? And I say, I ride Western Pleasure, which is the toughest one to ride in the Morgan world. And they would say, well, then how old are you? And at that time, I would say either 70 or 71 years old, and they would turn around to the person and say, then why can't you ride? You know, why can't you do it? Why are you giving up? And if he's not giving up at that age, there's no reason why anybody else cannot do that. So I've enjoyed that part of my life. And I've also enjoyed watching the barn being built, come up, and the neighborhood, which at first was a little bit reluctant to have a stable there where it is, right next to the golf course on Spear Street. And all of a sudden, as they saw it grow and become a full-fledged building, and the beauty of it, everybody had said, well, my God, this is really helping the community. This is a beautiful place for the community and for horses to be, and everybody is enjoying stopping by, and the sign out in our front yard there says welcome. And we do certainly mean that. We welcome anybody who wants to come down, see the Morgan horses, and see this brand new stable that's being built, and enjoy what we have. It's a hobby that we have, and we wish to invite everybody who wishes to come in. They certainly can.
That's very kind of you. I don't know if I can speak for the community, but I've lived here for quite a few years now, and we've all of us around have seen that the rural aspect of Vermont has been disappearing, and things have gotten more and more built up and expensive and cosmopolitan. And I think, this is my guess, that a lot of people are responding to your horses the way they are because they don't like that. They don't like the city aspect here in Vermont, and we like Vermont to be Vermont, and we like it to be rural and beautiful and very special kind of spot. And so you bring that back to us again, and that's a real gift to us. So we thank you for it.
Well, we feel, I think, very, very blessed to have landed in such a community. I mean, it was the beautiful house in 15 acres that drew us there, and the proximity to the Morgan Horse Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And since my husband is the president of the newly formed nonprofit Morgan Horse Heritage Foundation, which has an exclusive goal of keeping a Morgan Horse Museum in the state of Vermont, there was a stretch of time where that was supposed to be moved to Kentucky. And we felt that was not right. Even though we weren't Vermonters, we were brought into the group, which I'll tell you, that was felt very, very wonderful to be that welcomed to help save this and keep it here. And I do believe we have achieved that. And being right next to Shelburne Museum, it's a perfect location. We are hoping that there's more unity with a common walkway back and forth that would make people have more opportunity to see what the Morgan Horse has done in its heritage from 1791. It's really quite remarkable. And I guess the neighborhood, some of these photos, this one is an example, of Teddy again, but these are this big picture we showed you and this one are shown to you because of the kindness of our neighbors across the street. Louise and Michael Kay are professionals, they're photographers, and even though they were a little upset that there were going to be horses on the street and not knowing what that meant, while we were building the barn, Louise was taking photos, and she took them every few days. So we have an entire CD or DVD, whatever, and it shows the beginning of the barn from when it was mud all the way up to the Christmas holidays when it was covered with snow and the cupola was lit. And it's the most beautiful picture. So we are indebted to so many in Shelburne for who they've been to us.
Right. And not only that, but one of the first things that she asked me was, when she had completed this, was, can I film a baby being born?
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, certainly, but of course we know when the mom was going to say, yes, it's time for the baby to be born. And so when it was time for the baby to be born, she came down very quickly right afterwards and filmed the entire thing and interspersed that along with the other one being born into this film that she has of the barn being built. And then she also went to another place and filmed the stallion, so that she interspersed the stallion also into this film. So it's about a 10-minute, 15-minute version of everything happening to us at the same time. The stallion being shown, the babies being born, the building coming up, and it really is a beautiful piece of work that she has done, and we're very grateful to them that they have done this.
Yeah, and true to life, when we're in the barn in the evening, sometimes we are tired and we get a little heated. Well, why didn't you do this before you did that? All petty things. And it's not the worst of the human condition, but it happens. And one night before Christmas last year, we were having a particularly loud grumble back and forth. And then I'm hearing music, and I said to Jerry, "You left the radio on in your truck." "No, I didn't. You had to. There's music outside." Well, some neighbors came. They were carrying lanterns. They were singing Christmas carols. And they came into the barn and sang to us and the horses and gave us this big, beautiful wreath for the barn. And I still have not acquired their name. It's one of the things I must do now that we're done with showing, because it just touched our hearts. It's the Vermont of old, the Vermont that I remember growing up in Waitsfield, and how people all knew who each other were, knew if somebody had troubles, and managed to offer that little bit of help. And so people have been very generous and welcoming. So it was much more than we ever anticipated.
So we have lived in different places, and of course had horses in different places, but we've never come to any place like Vermont where we are so welcome. And Vermont is unique. My folks have had a place here since 1938. We built a log home in Vershire, Vermont, and we knew everybody, and of course everybody knew us, and it has just been a unique experience here in Shelburne to get back to the same thing, even though Shelburne and the surrounding area here is dispersed with many, many different people from many places in the country. We find them very welcome, and they have really welcomed us with their heart, and we appreciate that here in this town.
that, you know, our program here is two-way communication. So the public can phone you guys and ask you questions, and you can respond to those questions honestly and with candor and interest. You can't do that on the commercial television program, but you can on this program. And so we invite our listeners right now to phone in and to ask whatever questions or make whatever statements they want to make about you guys. That can be done electronically. And Bill, would you give the phone number to call if people want to phone into the studio and talk with these wonderful people? Bill?
The telephone number? Yes, I can. It's, of course, it's the Vermont area code 802. It's 651-0589.
And feel free to call us in on any of the subjects that we've talked about this morning. And we'll try to answer all your questions on the Morgan Horse or the Morgan Museum or any of the showing aspects that we've encountered over the years.
And I guess, too, if you happen to watch the taped version and you have questions, you're more than welcome to stop into the barn on Spear Street. We have enjoyed people coming from all over the United States, compliments of the friends we have over at the National Museum of the Morgan Horse. And when people visit that, they say, well, we want to see a Morgan. And our trainer at Cedar Spring Farms in Charlotte always welcomes people, but they have no time to stop and answer questions. We do, and we love it. We have met some of the most intriguing, wonderful people, and many of them come with very small children, which always amazes me how children seem to know which horse to go up to that's going to be the safe one. The one that isn't, you know, a little nervous from being rescued or what have you. They do seem to have good radar, children. We gave a open barn experience on a family farm fest in Randolph, something they were holding for a few years. And it was 3 years ago we did our first one. And it was open, I think, from something like 11 to 3, and we just let them come up our driveway and down. Well, I have to tell you that the first 15 minutes, it was people with walkers, canes, or very young children who were our first visitors.
Wow. Why was that so?
I think many of the elderly came because they had horses in their childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And probably were on grandpa's farm or grandma's farm and had a chance to ride or drive as a kid. So they were curious and they wanted to see how the Morgan Horse is today. It has changed somewhat, but the basics are all there, I can assure you. That disposition, that family friendly and ability, oh my gosh, they're loaded with it. And then of course children. Young children always are fascinated. Sometimes the pony they come to see isn't a pony, it's a little large. But the young horses, we had a young filly then, she was about a week old. And she stood right there and let little kids pat her, and it was really a joy. So we kind of found out that the public could be wonderful. And so we have welcomed people at our barn, and we continue to do so. We had hoped to do an open barn this fall, but we've had some illness in the family, which has made it a little difficult. So we will faithfully, I have to make a statement publicly that we will do this in the spring. We would like people to be able to stop in and spend some time asking questions and letting us share the joy that we have. The Morgan Horse, in keeping with the changing mores and events of this world, it's very nice to have a horse to come home to.
It is indeed.
It just does something for the soul. It really does. And they're using horses, some Morgans, for those that have returned from this recent series of wars who have been injured. And you can take somebody who's been stuck in a wheelchair or in a bed and put them on top of a horse. And just that different position so elevates their moods. It also, the horse is rhythmical. And that rhythm, I think, helps them get back to walking and doing things that they've not been able to do since injured. They are good for the soul. I can't say that enough. My larger furry angels.
I have a gentleman that comes over from across the street, and he was getting quite familiar with our horses and petting them and doing everything else. And in the indoor riding ring, I had one of my horses, and I said, "Michael, would you like to get up on the horse?" Well, he had never been on a horse and didn't know what to do, and I helped him get on the horse and led him around an indoor part of the ring, and he was so enamored of it, he just couldn't get over it. He says, "I've never had an experience like this, to be on an animal so high up.
That large.
And that large, and so he has certainly, he's come back many, many times now, and he's been on the horse a couple of times, and so he's just, this is where he loves to come home. He's from his profession, which is not, has anything to do with horses, and just come down to the barn, relax, and maybe if there's a horse out there, maybe he can get on that horse and enjoy. So this is what some of the people who come to our place get to enjoy, and they get to enjoy what horses are all about, and certainly what they're going to see as we go along with feeding them, with saddling them, with riding them, to do all the things that we do with them, that these people are welcome to come and see what we do with the horse. And we're awfully happy to have anybody there who wishes to do that.
Bill, how much time do we have left here?
We have less than 10 minutes.
Less than 10 minutes? So those of you who would want to talk about horses and your questions, your statements, now's the time to phone in. What's the number again?
It is 651-0589.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to hold this up. This is from 2008. This is one of the awards, well, I guess the important one, which is the Reserve World Championship that the stallion won. And it's an act of faith when a trainer says, "Gee, I think if you buy this horse, you have a good chance to have a real good winner. He's built for this type of job. He's got the disposition and the talent. And he's also beautiful," which I have to say is an element of having a good show horse, is to have one that's very attractive to the eye.
Well, we've certainly enjoyed being here and talking about the Morgan horse, and hope that you will call in. If you can call in and ask us any questions that you want to, we'll be glad to answer them.
Even tomorrow or next week? It doesn't have to just be right now.
No, they can call us at any time.
Oh, yeah.
Call us at our stable, and we'll be glad to answer any kind of questions that they have.
You know, wintertime is coming along, and there's a song that we all are familiar with, going through the snow to grandfather's house. We go, and most of us have never been on a sleigh in the wintertime. And do you provide that opportunity?
Well, we are in the process. We have acquired a beautiful old sleigh, and we have a wonderful carriage mare. She's not the biggest horse on the earth. She's very, very small by the standard of this new stallion, but she's a strong little girl. And what we have to do now is to get her trained for pulling a sleigh, because the sleigh moves differently than a carriage or a cart. And if you're not careful when you first start out, you don't want to frighten a young horse by asking them to do more or something very different that they're not accustomed to. So we have to kind of do this a little bit slowly when we have enough snow. We've preferred this to Randolph. Over there we had snow a year ago, May 6th, and we're really happy that we didn't have it here.
I don't think we can have a sleigh out in 8 foot of snow. Here we might get 4 or 5 inches or 10 inches, and that'll be perfect for a sleigh. So probably here in Shelburne, we'll have much more of a time to do that.
Yeah, we hope that we can provide, if not a ride, at least to let people hear the jingle bells. And it's interesting, we all think, okay, jingle bells, big deal. However, jingle bells is an important part. They had to be on the harness horses, because a lot of times with fog or wind or blowing snow, you could not see very far ahead of you. So in order for horse drivers to know that they were coming to an intersection with somebody coming the other way, they used bells. So you could hear that there was another vehicle coming.
Never knew that.
Yeah, well, I've learned a lot of trivia thanks to the museum and thanks to being a speaker over at the History Expo. I've had to brush up on the whys because people want the whys.
I understand the Shelburne Museum has a relationship with you guys.
Yes, they do, and they've been exquisitely helpful this last few years. They've had new folks come in, and they're offering suggestions on how to improve just the entryway to our building so that it has a little different flow. And I think that's wonderful too, because when people come to the National Museum of the Morgan Horse, they can then go over and see the huge carriage collection that is at the Shelburne Museum. So it kind of knits it together, I think, in a way that our breeds could not, manage to do. It would be, I can't even imagine. If we're having difficulty taking care of 15 horses, which, by the way, we do ourselves.
Music means that our program has come to an end today. But obviously, as you've heard, you can still be in touch with these wonderful people and their horses, even though the program isn't operative at the moment. And please phone up and see what you can do.
That's wonderful.
So thank you very
Thank you.
much for being here.
And we've enjoyed it very much.
Well,
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Well, it's meant a lot to all of us.
we're glad to share.